statistical, mathematical fact
never has been down.
has broken every single record. There is no asset that has come close.
It's the only thing in the industry that was not touched, that was not hacked, and it never fails doing what it promised in 2009. It's never
What's
failed.
the best performing asset the world has ever seen? And you'll find out that it's Bitcoin.
Welcome to another live space with Oliver Velez. Of course, my name is Oliver Velez. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about Bitcoin, our favorite topic here. So come on in, make yourselves comfortable. Maybe grab the beverage of your choice. Maybe even grab something to take notes with. Sometimes we come up with some things that are quite profound in these talks. It might be worthy of you taking some notes. So welcome Bitcoiners, welcome traders, welcome supporters, welcome haters. Welcome to another live space here. I wanted to have a brief talk with you about something that I think that all of us, whether we are Bitcoiners or not, actually face in our lives today. And that is coming in contact with Bitcoin FUD. FUD is the nickname that stands for, or the acronym that stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And it's become the label we put on anything that really attempts to attack Bitcoin from a negative narrative's point of view. And so I would like for us to explore some of the more popular, and I'm going to solicit your help on this. I would like for us to explore the most popular FUD items that constantly get thrown at Bitcoin. And I'd like us to try to basically pick these pieces of FUD apart one by one. All right. Or at least I'd like to share with you how I deal with the most popular FUD items that constantly get thrown at Bitcoin. All right. So if you don't mind, I'd like for you to help me out by typing for me what you consider to be in the comments. Good morning to you guys. I'd like you to type for me what you consider to be the most popular or the most frequently negative narratives thrown at Bitcoin. And let's try to pick them apart one by one. So I am actually going to start this off, all right, I'm going to start this off with the first one. Someone sent me a link earlier today regarding, I'm going to get his name. I'm going to get his name very quickly here. Someone sent me a link regarding a rather elderly, a comment made by a rather elderly traditional financial expert. His name is Ed Yardeni. He was this morning interviewed by Bloomberg, and they asked Mr. Yardeni about his views on Bitcoin. And he was honest and basically said that I'm from the old school. I think that Bitcoin is digital tulips, which is silly. But he was honest in saying that, listen, I'm old school. I need earnings. I need something to hang my hat on for the most part. Bitcoin doesn't have earnings. And so as a result of that, I just see it as digital tulips. Now, this comment about Bitcoin and even gold for that matter, in the old days, but Bitcoin having no earnings, meaning it insinuates that Bitcoin doesn't have a value because it is not a company that generates something like earnings. And I hear this very frequently, and I want to share with you how I typically deal with it. This is totally addressing Bitcoin incorrectly, because Bitcoin at its core is the best money that the human race has ever had access to. It's the soundest money. It's one of the scarcest forms of money. It's one of the hardest forms of money, which means that it's hard to produce more of it. And this money also happens to be the best performing asset the world has ever seen. Now, why is it important to understand that Bitcoin is the best money humans have ever come in contact with? Because money doesn't have earnings, you frickin' bozo. Bitcoin is money, the best money. Money doesn't have earnings. It's not a company, it's money. It's not an organization, it's money. It's not an institution, it's money. Do you understand? Money doesn't have earnings. Money is the earnings. Bitcoin is the profits. Bitcoin is the earnings. You, for the best money in the world, you should be doing everything in your life to take profits in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the profit. Bitcoin is the earnings. It doesn't have earnings, it is the earnings. So you should wake up every single day of your life and give your time, your effort to your organization, your corporation, your job, your business, whatever, to earn Bitcoin. You trade financial markets, you should be trading not for more dollars that goes down in purchasing power every second you hold them. You should be trading for more Bitcoin. You should be working for more Bitcoin. You should be delivering value to someone else or the world at large to earn more Bitcoin, to get more of the best, to get more of the best money the world has ever come in contact with. Do you understand? And so this idea that this is crazy, this idea that, oh, Bitcoin doesn't have earnings, it's just silly. It is the earnings. Bitcoin is the profit. Bitcoin doesn't have profits because it is the profits. It is the profit, bozo. All right, so that FUD completely destroyed. Let's take another one. Which one do you have? Any others from you? I've got another one to tackle if you don't have any. So just let me know here. Let me just check to see what you've got here. Okay. Strutta Swag says, I just spoke to my neighbor friend today. I told him start buying Bitcoin. He said he heard it was gonna flop. I told him he was he was bugging out. By the end of the conversation, I got him interested. Bitcoin is not a flop. Yeah, that's not a common theme today. I think that what you mean by, I think that what he meant by Bitcoin is going to be a flop is that Bitcoin is going to zero. This is something that we hear less and less of. This was more common in the earlier days, but I can't remember the name of the law. But every single hour, Bitcoin does not go down or does not go to zero, that stays alive and well, increases its odds exponentially that it won't. Now, remember what I told you that in my in I've been in the financial arena for 4 decades, more 43 years in total, 37 of those years as a true professional. Okay, and in my industry, 10 years is that unmistakable, unquestionable mark, if you will. That's the standard to go by. A 10-year record. A 10-year record can't be questioned. A 10-year record can't be doubted in my industry, in the traditional financial industry. You can't fake 10 years. This is what my industry understands, that you can fake or get lucky with a 2-year period. Some can even get lucky every now and then with a 5-year period, although that's not very easy either. But 10 years, you cannot fake. 10 years, you cannot luck in. If you've done something consistently for a decade, then it is real. There is enough time to deal with several black swan events. There's enough time to deal with a variety of life's curveballs and unanticipated things that happen. And if you've survived what can be thrown at you over a 10-year period and maintain your consistency, maintain your success, maintain your high standard over an entire decade, that is the gold. That's what they used to call the gold standard. So we will always know that if you really want to know who the best money managers are, look at their 10-year record. If you really want to know what the best mutual funds out there, true talent behind the mutual fund, the management team, then check their 10-year record, not their 2-year record, not their 3-year record, not even their 5-year record, but their 10-year record. If you wanted to know who the best hedge funds were, you check their 10-year record. And if they didn't have one, you wait for them to have a 10-year record. Well, Bitcoin has 15 freaking years in your face of being the biggest success the world has ever known. It's the fastest adopted technology the world has ever witnessed. It's the best performing asset the world has ever known. It has the #1 record in every conceivable category you can come up with. It, out of all assets that have ever existed, asset classes that have ever existed, it has the best daily gain ever in the history of the world. It has the best weekly gain ever in the history of the world of any other financial class. It has the best monthly record of any other financial class in the world. It has the best year, the best 2-year, the best 3-year, the best 5-year, the best 10-year, the best 15-year. It squashes every single thing that human beings have ever known in every single category. And it's done it not over 2 years, 5 years, not even over 10 years, the golden standard. It's done it over 15 years. And I'm here to tell you that if in 15 years Bitcoin has not been hacked, it's not going to be hacked. If in 15 years it basically hasn't failed, it's not going to fail. And every single hour, every single day, the odds of failure drop precipitously. And so we can drop this idea after 15 years that it's going to zero or it's going to flop or it's going to fail. That's just absolutely dumb. And I ask you this, people, if 15 years of not just success, but success that embarrasses everything that we've ever had to measure against it. It's not just that it's won, it is won in the most embarrassing way. So if it's done this in 15 years and you're still doubting, my question is this: how many more years do you need? Do you need another 15 years? Do you need 30 years in total to be convinced of something? It's giving you the #1 position in every conceivable category over a 15-year period. It didn't get lucky over a 2-year period. It's done this over 15 years. So at what point will you concede and say, I'm on board now. I get it. I see it. Another 15 years? Do you need 50 years? Do you need freaking 100 years? And if you're still a doubter and after 15 years, and you don't have a threshold at which you will become a believer, then you're just a hater. That's very different from being a non-believer. A non-believer is one who believes they need to see more. A hater is, I don't care what I see. I'm just not on board with this because I hate it. That's very different. One comes from a place of ignorance, all right? The other comes from a place of just, um, in this case, just basically not investigating enough. There is nothing to doubt about Bitcoin after 15 years and being number one in every conceivable category you can possibly conceive, can come up with. There's nothing to doubt, zero. So any doubt really stems from just not looking, even in a cursory way, just not looking. All right, what else here? The FUD narrative, no use case. Calvin is saying that's a FUD narrative you use. Bitcoin has no use case. This is truly silly. It's like saying um, uh, money doesn't have a use case. How can money not have a use case? It's the best money the world has ever known. It's the best performing asset the world has ever known. It's the hardest. On April 21st, Bitcoin becomes harder than gold. Basically, its stock to flow shoots past gold and real estate at the same time, becoming the hardest asset on planet Earth. So what hard means is that it's difficult to create more of it. All right, so gold has an inflation rate of approximately 1.5% to 2% every single year. All right, and this will go on for eternity. So gold is not scarce by any stretch of the imagination. It's just hard to get to it, but it's there in infinite amounts. We haven't even begun to search for gold at the bottom of the oceans or in mountains, in meteorites that can be reached by vehicles today. I mean, it's infinite in the universe. It's just hard to get at. Okay. And it's expensive to get at. So if gold were to go from $2,000 an ounce to 4,000, trust me, there are mines that have a ton of gold in them today that if the price went higher, those mines would be reopened because it's not profitable at 2,000 to mine them. The gold is there, but you lose money by mining it. But if it goes to 4,000, now you don't lose money by mining it. All of these mines would reopen. All of this mining machinery would get the dust blown off of it, and you would start to see that 1.5% inflation rate of new gold coming from a below ground to above ground go to something like 6%. And there's a saying in the commodity business that the solution to higher prices for a commodity is higher prices. So higher prices make it more profitable to go to work at producing the commodity. Producing the commodity more at the higher prices creates more supply. More supply starts to quell the price all the way back down. But this is something that you can't do with Bitcoin. You can't, no matter how high the price goes, and no matter how many additional miners join the network to mine, to compete for the block reward, you can't produce more, making it the hardest money the world has ever seen. But let me talk very briefly about this utility FUD, the idea that Bitcoin doesn't have a utility. Utility is something that I think that I've come to realize that the vast majority of people don't understand where it fits in valuing utility with a commodity in particular. You see, listen to me carefully, and this is something that I actually suggest that you take notes on. Utility in a commodity, the higher the utility, the lower the the value of the commodity. I'm going to repeat that. The higher the utility of something, the lower the price of something. Think about it. The higher the utility of something, the lower the price of something. Now, I know this is not entirely fair, but it will drive the point home. Gold is used in a utilitarian way. Gold is used less than silver. Silver is used like 1,000 times more than gold, but gold is above $2,000 an ounce. Silver is at $26 an ounce. 2026. But silver's has more utility than gold. Lower unit price. Copper is actually far more used than silver. It's one of the most used items on planet Earth, copper. Yet copper is at $5 per unit, and silver's at 26. So gold is at 2,000 plus. It's used less than silver. Silver's at 26. It's used less than copper. Copper is at 5. It's used, and then you go all the way to water. Water is used more than copper. And what's a bottle of water today? $1? And air is used more than water. How much does air cost? $0. So the higher the utility of something, the lower its unit price. Bitcoin is used less than gold, and it is at 67,000. Gold is used less than silver. It is at 2,000 plus. Silver is used less than copper. It's at $4. Copper is used less than water. It's at $1. Water is used less than air. It's free. You don't want high utility with your valuable money. Do you understand? This is an error. What's the utility of a vault? It's a freaking empty space that does nothing but sit there, right? A secure vault just is an empty space that you put something in and it doesn't do a damn thing. The space just sits there. But what is its value? It protects it forever. That's what Bitcoin does. It protects your life forever. It protects your future forever. It allows, whatever you place in the protection of Bitcoin, no other human being, no other man can touch, take, confiscate, debase, ruin, or steal from you. That's its utility. Its utility is that it is guaranteed mathematically to become scarcer and therefore more valuable every 4 years of its life forever, all the way to 2140. Its utility is that it will increase who you are, make you richer, make you more, secure your family more every 4 years until you die and beyond, until your children die and beyond, forever. That's its utility. It's the most secure vault the world has ever known. It's the greatest savings technology that human beings have ever come in contact with. It's the most certain thing that we have ever encountered in the entire evolutionary process of human beings. For the first time, Bitcoin has brought to our lives a certainty based on mathematics that we've never had with anything else that we were told to trust our future with, because every single thing else we were told to trust our future with is a man-made item. And because it's a man-made item, it is fallible. Human beings are fallible, and therefore the things that they create have that fallibility inherent in them. Well, Bitcoin is not influenced, controlled, or manipulated by any human being, yet it is available to every single human being on earth. For the first time, it has brought the ultimate utility and the ultimate height of certainty. Hallelujah. All right, guys. What else are we talking about here, guys? What else are we talking about? What other FUD? Let's kill some other FUD here. How do you think we will be able to monetize our BTC in 10 years? This question is off. It stems from a misunderstanding of what we just talked about. Because in truth, Bitcoin should be considered your profit. So you should be monetizing other things to make more Bitcoin. You've got it backwards. Bitcoin should not be used to get something else. You should be using everything else to get more Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the monetization. So some of you are struggling to wrap your mind around what I'm saying, but I'm going to try to make it very simple to you. Right now, you have been indoctrinated to regard the US dollar as your prize. You go out into the world and you give your time, your effort, your hard work to win the prize, more US dollars. You go to school to get more educated with the purpose of what? Earning more of the prize. What's the prize? More US dollars. You try to up your skill level with the purpose of what? To earn more of the prize. What's the prize? More US dollars. You don't ask, how do I monetize the prize? You ask, how do I monetize my skill level? How do I monetize my effort? How do I earn more dollars? That's what you spend your whole life doing. Well, I'm saying, what if there's a better prize? What if the prize that you've been taught to believe is the ultimate prize actually goes down every second you hold it, which it does? What if the prize that you've been tricked into believing is the ultimate prize that you give your time and your life to is guaranteed to make you poorer every 4 years of your life? What if I told you there was a new prize, a different prize, that if you gave your time, your effort, and your skill to get this prize, that it is mathematically designed to increase your life, increase your riches, increase your wealth, improve your family's future every 4 years of your life? And if I were to convince you of that, wouldn't you change the prize from dollars to Bitcoin? And you wouldn't be talking about, well, how can I flip my Bitcoin back to something else? No, because that's the ultimate prize. You don't flip back from the ultimate prize. You understand? You don't flip back. If Bitcoin becomes your unit of account, because now the dollar is your unit of account, but if you realize that Bitcoin is a better unit of account to work for, to give your life for, then you don't go back to the inferior. Why do you change when you go from the weak to the strong? When is it appropriate to go back from the strong, to go from the strong back to the weak? When is that appropriate? When is it smart to do that? When is it intelligent to get rid of the superior to go back to the inferior? It's never appropriate. It's never intelligent. And this stems from the idea that the dollar is still somehow better than Bitcoin. So, Oliver, I know I'm riding Bitcoin now, but when do I monetize it back into the US dollar because that's still my ultimate prize. But how? How can that be the ultimate goal, more dollars, if you have now been educated on what the dollar does to your life and your future and your family? It makes you poorer every 4 years of your life. It makes you have to work harder every year of your life by losing 2 to 12% of its purchasing power every year. So you have to work 2 to 12% harder to buy the same groceries you bought last year to feed your family. And you'll do this forever until you die. You'll work harder and harder every single year, and you'll scratch your head after 4 or 5 years. After every 4 or 5 years, you'll scratch your head and sit there in amazement and wondering, why is life not getting better for me? Why does it seem like it's getting harder? Why does it seem like I'm struggling more? It's because your purchasing power has a leak in it. It's dying, it's declining every year, ever so slightly, to the point where you only notice it every 4 or 5 years. It creeps up on you. And this is why your children are poorer than you are, and you are poorer than some of your grandparents, because life gets harder in a fiat currency based system every year of your life until you die. And Bitcoin reverses that. Life gets better every 4 years. Everything in the world gets cheaper. You get richer. You become bigger than you are today, 4 years from now. Your family's future becomes more secure 4 years from today. Every single purchase date, you can mark that on a calendar. And 4 years from that purchase, 4 years from that date, you will be richer. This is baked into the code. Do you understand? This is mathematically secure. Every single day you add dollars to Bitcoin, you can go 4 years into the future and know that purchase will make me richer, make me better, make me higher, make me wealthier 4 years from today. Every single purchase is a wealth creation act in Bitcoin. And every single time you take profits in dollars, from the moment you receive those dollars, it starts losing purchasing power. Every second you hold it in your bank account or in your hands or in your jeans pocket. The trick is that the number on the unit never changes, but the purchasing power does. So $100 bill that they painted on the $100 bill, the artist painted the $100 on the coupon. That number 100 doesn't change, but the value is rapidly declining. 99, now 98. Now 97, now 96, now 95, but the number on the bill stays the same, and that's how you get tricked to think that that your money is equal. Your money is the same, but it's never the same. It's always less. Every time you wake up in the morning, all the dollars you have lower value than before you went to sleep. Every moment of your life is melting away if you're saving your life in dollars. If your goal is more dollars, you are really not approaching life intelligently anymore. It's time to wake up. The goal can't be what makes you poorer anymore. The trick is out of the bag now. You should understand the trick that has been played on us now. That we can no longer fall for this trick anymore, people. The goal is not what makes us poorer every 4 years now. The goal needs to be what makes us freer and wealthier and better off every 4 years from now. We've got to change the unit of account. We've got to change our mindset to understand my ultimate stop is Bitcoin. It is not using Bitcoin to make my ultimate stop the dollar, which makes me poorer every 4 years of my life. Wake up. It's time to wake up now. All right, let's see what else here. What other FUD are we going to start attacking here? That's right, Diego says Bitcoin is the final destination. That's the way you got to see it, guys. It might take time for you to get there, but you got to see it that way. Eric Johnson says this guy's the best. I appreciate that, Eric. I really do. I'm not just saying that. A lot of people have a hard time today, you know, putting themselves out there with a positive comment. It's easier to put yourself out there with a negative comment today in today's clown world. And somehow when someone's positive, it's looked down upon. It's really weird to me. And it quells the positive comment. So when someone is bold enough to do that, I really appreciate it. So thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. Oh, I like this. PPM Black says FUD narrative. It's not backed by anything or anybody. Good. Because Bitcoin is the backup. If something needs a backup, then isn't it inferior to what is backing it up? Bitcoin is the ultimate superiority. The ultimate superior thing is the backup to everything else. It doesn't have a backup. So I know I have some women in the group here, and of course I have men in the group, but I have to speak from a male-centric point of view here, and I apologize about that. If that offends someone, I'm sorry, but I'm still going to do it. If I were to go to you as a man, and I'm speaking to the men here, the men with families that are listening to me speak right now, if I were to go to you and say, who is your backup? Who's the backup to your family? Now, if you're a real man, you'd say, what do you mean, Oliver? What do you mean, who's the backup to my family? And I would say, well, is the backup to your family your mother-in-law? Does she back you up in your family? And if you're a real man, you'd probably say, what are you talking about, Oliver? My mother-in-law doesn't back me up. And I says, well, does some other man back you up and your wife and your kids? You got somebody to fall back on, another man to fall back on? And if you're a real man, you say, you start to get angry with me, right? Oliver, I am the backup. I am the final say. I am where the buck stops in my family. I don't need a backup. That's what you'd say if you're a real man. Well, Bitcoin is a real money. A real money doesn't need another man to back it up. A real money doesn't need another asset to make up for its inferiority because it is the frickin' backup. It is the superior thing. The superior thing doesn't need a backup. Everything else needs that backup. Bitcoin backs up every single thing else. It's the hardest money ever to be exposed to human beings, and it's the best performing asset on planet Earth. What does number one need to be frickin' backed up by? It's got the best record of a month of any asset ever in the history of the world, the best record of a year, the best record of 2 years, the best record of 3 years, the best record of 5 years, the best record of 10 years, the best record of 15 years. What does number one need a backup for? Now, let me take this FUD. We have to pick this FUD we have to pick this FUD apart a different way as well. All right. So we attacked it this way. That's done, in the bag, destroyed. Let's destroy it another way. When people refer to a backup, what they're really referring to, consciously or unconsciously, in most cases it's unconscious because people aren't this sophisticated in most cases, but Where the term backed up came from is from the days of when, for instance, a paper note was backed up by a corresponding piece of gold sitting in a bank or a custodian, right? So my note is backed up by gold. So I have a $10,000 note that is literally backed up by $10,000 worth of gold held in a bank or by a custodian. That's what a backup means historically, that the inferior item, the paper, is really backed up by the superior thing and can be exchanged on demand for the superior thing. All right? So that's what the true meaning of backup means. I can exchange it for the superior thing. What can you change a single dollar bill for today in the United States? Is it backed up by something? No. No fiat currency is backed up by anything today. It is backed up by coercion. When something doesn't really have when something is not chosen, but you demand that it be used, it is used by coercion. So the dollar is no longer, you can't exchange a dollar for an equivalent amount of gold anymore. So it is not backed up by anything except imprisonment, jail, guns, violence. Do you understand? And so Bitcoin is peace. It doesn't need to be backed up by anything because it is the superior thing. It has the number one spot in every conceivable category you can think of. The superior thing doesn't need a freaking backup. Now, some people might say that Bitcoin is backed up by all the computing power on planet Earth. It's backed up by cryptography, making it the most secure vault, most secure network. It's some people might say that it's backed up by, you know, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of miners. It's backed up by, you know, enormous amounts of energy. Those are not perfect responses, but they do have some form of legitimacy. All right. But the real thing is that if anything needs to be backed up, it means that it is inferior and needs to be backed up by something superior. And Bitcoin is the superior thing and therefore needs no backup. FUD destroyed, done. And if someone doubts whether it's superior, then tell them to find something that is more superior, because Bitcoin has the number one spot in every conceivable category you can think of. So that's a losing battle right there. All right, let's see here. Jack says it's a Ponzi scheme. That's something that I do hear a lot about. So the FUD that Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme is silly because that FUD is predicated on a fundamental misunderstanding of what the definition of a Ponzi scheme or what an actual Ponzi scheme is. You see, a Ponzi scheme requires that I take money from you to pay off an earlier investor. All right. And if the money from you stops coming in, all right, the value The value that you have, that you receive, is actually coming from another person. That's what a Ponzi scheme is, and it has to be perpetuated by new people coming in to actually reward the older people who came in earlier. Now, if you think about it, you can, if you apply the erroneously apply a Ponzi scheme to anything that's bought and sold between human beings, you can sloppily apply a Ponzi scheme title to anything that's bought and sold. Homes, as an example, all right, you can loosely say the the real estate industry is a Ponzi scheme because it requires a new buyer to come in for the old buyer to go out. But everything on freaking planet Earth can meet that loose, erroneous, defined thing, that everything that's bought and sold between human beings requires a buyer and seller. That doesn't make it a Ponzi scheme. So I would encourage anyone who has said that, or anyone that you hear say that, the first thing you should do is make them look up the definition of a Ponzi scheme and see if that fits Bitcoin. All right. Has Satoshi Nakamoto benefited one iota, one penny, one Satoshi? No. That destroys the Ponzi scheme narrative right there. So looking up the definition of what a true Ponzi scheme is the first key to killing that silly narrative. And maybe we can do it here. All right, let's see what it says here. What makes a Ponzi scheme? A Ponzi scheme is an investment fraud that pays existing investors with funds collected from new investors. All right. So Satoshi Nakamoto was never paid by new investors coming in. Ponzi scheme organizers often promise to invest your money and generate high returns with little or no risk. Bitcoin doesn't promise you anything. There's no marketing campaign. There's no office. There's no CEO. There's no marketer. There's no individual pumping Bitcoin. Yes, we talk about it, but there's no one in charge. To have a Ponzi scheme, you must be in charge of the Ponzi. And you must market promises based on that Ponzi to get other people to invest. Bitcoin doesn't have a marketing department. Bitcoin doesn't talk. Bitcoin doesn't say anything to you. Bitcoin doesn't go out there and try to convince you to invest in it. Bitcoin is just there. You come to it when you want to, or you never do. It's up to you. It is the absolute opposite of a Ponzi scheme. The founder never benefited 1 cent. It doesn't promise anything. No high returns. And usually these Ponzi schemes are there are these overblown high return expectations with zero risk. That is not what Bitcoin does. Bitcoin is the furthest thing from a Ponzi scheme. That's silly. All right, what else do we got here? What causes Bitcoin FUD? I think that there are several things. Ignorance, okay. Um, the the tendency for humans not to investigate today. We have been really conditioned by such an overwhelming amount of information in the internet era that we're content to no longer investigate, to do deep dives, to look into things because the information is so overwhelming. We've just, it's more comfortable and more convenient just to accept what's being heard, what someone else has said, instead of investigating to determine whether what someone else has said is valid or not. So if there's this meme, if of course it must be, if it's on the internet, of course it must be true. I read it on the internet, it must be true. And so people have stopped being true investigators. They've stopped being true lookers. And this has made the creation of FUD a lot more effective by people who have incentives for something not gaining traction or having a certain negative narrative around it. Bitcoin is the antichrist to central banks. That's what it is. It's literally the replacement of central banks. It's not the replacement for banks as much as it is the replacement for central banks, the central control of the money that other men have to give their lives for. And Bitcoin's come to say that's wrong. Why should one man control a money that another man must go out and bust his ass for? Who are you to be the one to control it? And why do I have to work for your money? Why? Why do I have to work for the money that another man controls? Why should any human being have to do that? A money that another man can change the price of, can make go up, can make go down, can alter the supply at will and at whim, can inflate the supply, can debase me at will. Why should I work my whole life for a money that other people don't have to work for because they control it? Why can't everybody be on fair footing and have to work for a money that is in the hands of no human being? Now we're all equal. That's what Bitcoin delivers. It delivers equality in that regard to every human being on earth. Fat, skinny, tall, short, female, male, LBGTTG, ABCDGG, whatever. You know? And so, because the centralized control of money is what is ruling planet Earth right now, there is an incentive to have FUD stick. There's an incentive to confuse matters today about what Bitcoin is. There's an incentive to let distractions proliferate. There's an incentive to let the shitcoin space, despite the fraud, despite the hundreds of billions of lost value in the altcoin shitcoin space, despite all of that, there is a benefit to the powers that be to let that proliferate, to confuse what Bitcoin is, to give you other shitty choices so that you don't choose Bitcoin. There's an incentive for a Coinbase to have airdrop after airdrop and show you a whole list of bullshit before you see Bitcoin the first time, to hold back your recognition of what this is. That is a planned thing. And FUD is planned. FUD is constructed to take your eyes off of the prize, to show you something shinier over here called a shitcoin, or to make you think it's bad because it's going to boil the oceans. You know, and so because it in many respects, despite the fact that, people like Larry Fink can't really go there and say what they know. Michael Saylor really can't go where I believe he would love to go, but knows as a public figure, he can't go all the way there to say that Bitcoin is protection against a failing system, that Bitcoin is the replacement of central banks all over the world. Like, they can't go all the way there, but I'm willing to bet my bottom dollar they know that. It's not smart for them to say it, but they know it. I'm a nobody, so I can say it. If something, oh, Diego, that's a good one. This is a good piece of FUD here. What if something better comes along? All right. That's another concern, a piece of FUD. What if something else? What if something better comes along? Here's what many people don't agree with. They either don't see it, and if they do, they don't understand it. And if they do understand it, especially for me, they don't agree with it. But let me take this in a certain direction here. What if something better comes along? Discoveries cannot be improved on. I'm going to repeat that. A discovery cannot be improved on. Only inventions can be improved on. And I'm sorry if you disagree with this, but I'm here to tell you that Bitcoin is not an invention, it is a discovery. Fire was discovered millions of years ago. You can't improve on fire. There's no fire 2.0. Electricity was recognized, in 600 AD? You can't improve on electricity. There's no second version of electricity that somehow is better than the first version of electricity. It's a discovery. You can't improve on the, you know, you can't improve on a discovery. There can't be a better one. Do you understand? But there can be a better invention. Now, why do I say that Bitcoin is a discovery? Because Bitcoin is digital scarcity. And scarcity can't be created by a human being. It only can be found. It only can be discovered. And it's very subtle, and it's sometimes difficult for me to get people to see this. But I want you to understand that the digital world has always existed since the beginning of time. It is not a creation. The digital world is not a creation. It was discovered. The same way that the atomic world, which for millions of years no human beings understood that there was an entire world that can't be seen by the naked eye, the atomic world, where there's millions of these atoms swimming around in life that we can't see. And for millions of years, we never thought that world, we never knew that another world, an atomic world existed, until human beings reached a point where they put together a contraption called a microscope, a piece of aluminum, some rubber, a glass, and all of a sudden, oh my God, look at this world that exists here. These millions of these things moving around. What are they? Atoms. And atoms existed since the beginning of time, but we managed to put something together called the microscope to discover a brand new world that always existed, the atomic world, and then the subatomic world. You understand? So I want you to take that analogy of humans getting to a place where they put together a contraption that found atoms that always existed. The Bitcoin network is the digital contraption, that is the microscope that found that, wait a minute, scarcity does exist in the digital world. He took pieces of things, he took things that existed before. Aluminum existed before the microscope. Rubber existed before the microscope came into existence. Glass existed before the microscope. The person who created the microscope took things that existed already, put them together in a unique way, and voila, there's atoms. Satoshi took cryptography, which existed decades before him. You know, he took hash and SHA-256, and he took these contraptions that already existed, put them together in a unique way, and voila, oh my God, there is scarcity here too. You see, the internet introduced us to the digital world in all of its glory, but we never thought that scarcity ever existed in the world that the internet introduced us to. Because in the digital world prior to Bitcoin, everything could just be copied. If I sent you an email, I always retained a copy of the email, and you could send that email to a million other people. There's no scarcity in that. If I send a photo to you, I still retain a copy of the photo. You can send that photo to millions of other people. There's no scarcity in that. We always believed that in the digital world, which the internet introduced us to, scarcity just was an impossibility. It was not there until Bitcoin showed us, no, it is here. Satoshi Nakamoto took SHA-256. He took cryptography. He took hash power. He took all of these things, put it together, created the modern day microscope of the day, and voila, discovered, oh my God, scarcity does exist in the digital world. It's called Bitcoin. And you can't improve on a scarcity. You can't improve on a discovery, only an invention. Bitcoin's not an invention. Satoshi found, he discovered digital scarcity. Scarcity is not a man-made thing. Otherwise, it's not scarce. Because if a man can create scarcity, then he can uncreate it. And that doesn't even make sense. Scarcity is found. It is not created. And so there can never be a fire, an improved version of fire, because it's a discovery. You can't have an improved version of atoms. You can't have an improved version of what was I saying? Electricity. And the last thing I will say on this point is this. The idea that you can have more than one fire is false. You know, there were attempts to make a second version of gold from base metals, right? So when gold was recognized as being scarce, there were attempts made for hundreds of years to create a different version of it, a better version of it, to create even an equal version of it, a gold 2.0 made from base metals. This proved to be impossible. It proved to be false. Do you understand? You can't have a second one. And this is where the narrative that you can have alternatives to Bitcoin is false. It's false historically, it's false intellectually. You can't have an alternative fire. And any attempts to create one will ultimately fail. You can't have an alternative electricity. You can't come up with an alternative atom. And why isn't there an Internet 2.0? Why is there only one? There were attempts to create a second version of an internet. They were called, I talked about this last night, right? They were called intranets, private ones, private internets that had specialties. This intranet's going to do this and focus over here and do this better than the open protocol internet. And where are they today? When's the last time you heard the term intranet? There's only one internet. There's no internet 2.0. There's one fire, one electricity, one atom, one Bitcoin. And all of these attempts to create a special intranet, a special Bitcoin, a special alternative, they're going to go the same route as everything else in history. The attempts to create another gold, gone, failure. The attempts to create different forms of electricity, gone, failure. The attempts to come up with something better than fire, gone, failure. The attempts to create another more specialized, more narrowly focused internet called an intranet, gone, failure. The attempts to create or improve on what is so-called Bitcoin's weaknesses by creating alternative coins, they're going to be gone, failures, like every single thing before them. I'm trying to pound the table. Stop wasting your time. Yeah, Calvin's come up with another one. It's not physical. I can't touch it or feel it. That's a common one. But I can't, it's not real. I can't touch it, as if something real, to be real, you have to touch it. So I attack this in two ways. All right, I attack this in two ways. Guys, how many people do I have here, by the way? Just a few here? I don't even know how many people I have here. No, it's funny, man. I tend to get more people when it's video. It's crazy. When it's live and you can see me. But okay. So anyway, it's not real or physical. First of all, everything is becoming immaterial today because we in our lives are being sucked into the digital world. I've spoken about this at length. The last time I did so, I did it last night. Your photos are no longer physical. You've got more photos in your phone than you've ever had in a physical album in your life. Some of you have never held a physical photo in your entire lives. You can't touch them, you can't feel them, but you can show them and you can still enjoy them. Your music is no longer physical. When's the last time you've held an actual record in your hands, a vinyl record or a CD? When's the last time? Some of you have never seen a record in your life. There are billions of songs that stream. You can't touch them. You can't feel them. You can't see them. Your music is immaterial today. Your books, I've got over 20,000 books on a device. I've got more books than my mother's library had that she worked in my whole childhood. I've got more books on one device that I can't touch or feel, but I can experience. My books, your books are no longer physical. Your photos are no longer physical. Your movies, when's the last time you've held a VHS tape or a DVD in your hands? Your movies have disappeared. Your mail has become dematerialized. The entire world, some of your friendships are digital in nature, where you speak to them every day over the internet, but you've never seen them. You've never really looked at their physical eyes, shook their hand. Our lives are being pulled, our entire existences are being digitized. Do you understand? And so the last thing on earth to be digitized in its entirety is money. It's the biggest thing. Money is being digitized, it's being dematerialized. Gold is being dematerialized, which makes it more superior. Because in the digital world, a human being can no longer steal it or take it or put their dirty hands on it. Your valuables becomes more secure if they become digitized. Your money stops being confiscatable if it's digitized. It can't be touched by another human being. It can't be confiscated. It can't be stolen. If it goes to that place, that new frontier, it becomes safer in the digital world. Because humans can't steal there. They can't take there. And our value is being pulled into the digital world via Bitcoin. Now, I will say this as well. Aren't some of the most valuable things in your existence immaterial, non-physical? The things you cherish the most in life, they can't be touched, seen, felt in any way that is physical. Love, show it to me. Put it in my hand. I want to touch it with my fingertips. You can't. Love is immaterial. That it is the supreme thing that all human beings are truly after. Immaterial. Justice, immaterial. Peace, decency, honesty, fairness. All of these things are the aspirations, are our highest aspirations as human beings. Yet you can't point to them. You can't show me them. You can't place any one of them in my hands. You can't give me a location on a Google's map of where they are. They're immaterial and therefore the highest things of value in our lives because they're freaking immaterial. That which is immaterial is inferior. And this is why gold is inferior to Bitcoin. Because it's physical, it is inferior to its digital counterpart. Gold is violence. Bitcoin is peace. I'm going to repeat that 2 more times. Gold, because it's physical, is violence. Bitcoin, because it's digital, is peace. 1 more time. It's that important. Gold is violence because it's physical. Bitcoin is peace because it's digital. Now, let me quickly explain what I mean by that. All right? Smoke on this. All the wars throughout modern history and not so modern history have been with the sole purpose of ravaging the wealth of other countries in the form of gold. Gold promotes violence because it can be stolen, because it can be confiscated. Gold invites fraud because it can be taken from another human being. It can be ravaged from another country's vaults. Every war was about taking another country's gold reserves. He who has the most gold rules. Ever hear that statement? He who has the most gold rules. And if a country started amassing a certain amount of gold, they would then become the targets of everybody else. Gold invites war. Gold invites violence because it's physical. Bitcoin promotes peace because it can't ever be stolen. How do you steal? Now, through carelessness, you can lose it. I'm not talking about that. I'm actually talking about if you're not careless, how can words be confiscated? I want you to think about it. Bitcoin's your words. Bitcoin is literally 12 to 24 words, right? For the first time, your word is your value. Your word is your wealth. Your word is your bond. Remember that saying? My word is my bond. You can go to the bank if I say it. Well, for the first time in life, it's for real. My word is my bond. My word is my worth. My word is my value. My word is my Bitcoin. Now, I've used this example before. I think I did it last night. If I tell you right now to think of the word hope, Hope. Now take that word. I want you to go over it in your mind mentally, the letters Hope, and say it in your mind, hope. Now, how do I steal that from you? How do I make that disappear? How do I take it where I have the word hope and you no longer have the word hope? How? If I throw you in jail because you're not supposed to have the word hope, by throwing you in jail, does it eliminate the word hope from you? No. If I tell you to drop, to give me the word hope because I don't want you to have it anymore, is that possible? No. You stay with hope, the word, forever. It can't ever be taken from you. That's what Bitcoin is. It can never be confiscated. It can never be taken from you. You can be careless with it and let someone have access to it. That's different from being confiscated against your will. Against your will, Bitcoin cannot be stolen ever, cannot be taken ever by another human being, cannot be confiscated ever. And when the world realizes over time that this is the only asset that can never be stolen, the only way for me to get to it is to give in peace value to the person who has it. It will raise the standard of productivity globally throughout the world. It will make every single human being better than they are today, because the only way they're going to get it is not by theft, not by confiscation, but by delivering value. Coming to the person with Bitcoin, coming to the Bitcoiner with honor, coming to the Bitcoiner with the best that they have to offer, the best service, the best product. They come to them correctly, because the only way you're going to convince a Bitcoiner to give you up a little bit of what's going to go up forever in his life, you better come with something freaking miraculous. You better come with something of honor. You better come with something so sublime that I am willing to let go of a little piece of my Bitcoin. And so it is going to incentivize the world to get better. No longer are they going to be pieces of junk sold for a lot of money. No longer are they going to be scams that go on, because no one is going to give up the most valuable, scarcest thing on planet Earth for your junk, for your nonsense anymore. And you'll never be able to steal it. So the only way you're going to get it from me is you're going to have to work for me, and you're going to have to work really hard for me. You're going to have to be so special for me to give up a little piece of my Bitcoin. This is what Bitcoin does for the world. It promotes peace, not violence, and it raises the level of every single human being on Earth. It raises the level of productivity across the globe. Bitcoin is our escape from freaking clown world. It is our future. It is our hope for a better existence amongst human beings. Think about that for a second. If every human being realizes that the most valuable thing in the world can't ever be stolen, then thieves go away, theft disappears, dishonest activity goes by the wayside, fraud becomes a thing of the past. You can't steal it. The only way is to work for it. OMG. Wow. Powerful. Powerful. What else are we doing here? I'm gonna take one more maybe. That's right. Calvin says, I'm digital. Most of you have never met me before. I'm digital for you. That's right. Let's see here. I see some funny comments, man. I can't say live though. That's it. Grandpa Bitcoin, this is very true, where he says Satoshi discovered scarcity, not just digital scarcity, scarcity, period. The only true scarce things in the universe are human time and Bitcoin. So very well spoken, Grandpa Bitcoin. So very well spoken. I don't know why you call yourself a grandpa. I'm probably older than you. But anyway, Grandpa Bitcoin does have a very, very powerful point here. That scarcity has existed outside of time, because we know that our time is truly scarce and finite. But outside of our human time, right, that scarcity never really truly existed. It temporarily was there's a false scarcity that is created by the limitations of humans at the particular time. So for instance, there was a time where the only way you could get gold was with a pick and a shovel. And so gold could only be found so deep into the ground because a pick and a shovel can only go so deep. And so it was more scarce when the only tools you had to mine gold was a pick and a shovel. But when more advanced technology to dig deeper in the ground came into existence, a less scarce, the scarcity diminished. And as the technology continued to improve, the scarcity diminished. So that's not real scarcity. That's a false scarcity created by or brought into being by the limitation of technology at the current moment, or the limitation of humans. There was a time where on planet Earth, calories were scarce. Now, I know for certain people in the world, calories are still scarce. That's very unfortunate. But for the most part, the vast majority of the human race does not consider calories scarce today. But there was a point where almost every human being experienced calories as being scarce. They did not eat regular times, 3 times a day, 4 times a day, with snacks in between before. They ate once a week, twice a week if they got lucky, because it was scarce to find food, scarce. Calories were scarce. Today, just look at the average overweight, obese person in America. You think calories are scarce today? So calories had a false sense of scarcity because of the limitation of human beings at that time. And as those limitations dropped and the capability increased, the scarcity changed. Scarcity, when it's real, can't be changed. Bitcoin is truly scarce, as Grandpa Bitcoin is saying, because no matter what human beings do, no matter how advanced they get, no matter how improved make the technology, you can't produce more. It's over. It's a one and done. That is real, true, authentic scarcity. It can't be altered in any way by a human being or any of their contraptions. Bitcoin is true scarcity. The only 2 things in the universe, as Grandpa Bitcoin says, is human time and Bitcoin. And Bitcoin actually is time, which is mind-blowing in and of itself. All right, guys. Love you guys, man. Love you guys. Thank you very much for showing up here. Yes, thank you very much for showing up, guys. I know I don't give a lot of advance notice for these talks, so I know that if I were able to do that, perhaps maybe, we draw some larger audiences because of the ability to prepare for them. But just my life doesn't work that way. So I have to, in large part, do these things in an impromptu manner. I had some time. I hope that you've gotten something out of our talk today. And I hope you stay close. Remember, guys, stack harder. Don't be fooled by temporary vacillations in the USD denominated price of Bitcoin. Remember my talk from last night, the Bitcoin 10x factor? If you have not listened to that or watched that, get on a treadmill, take a walk, take your dogs for a walk, put your headphones on and a workout in the gym or something like that, and listen to that talk. I want you to understand the Bitcoin 10x factor. I believe that it will be extraordinarily important and valuable for you as we go into the halving in the latter part of April. All right, guys, happy Friday to you. You know what to do. Go to work. Stack harder. Ciao for now. My name is Oliver Velez, and I am your 13%er Bitcoiner. Be safe out there, and until next time. Boom!